We've waited a whole year for this, and the time has finally come. Apple has released a new iPhone 15 series, and we have our hands on the iPhone 15 Pro. I have to say, I am extremely impressed with some of the camera improvements, and there is actually one big new feature that I believe will completely remove the need for using actual cameras to shoot videos for most people. Innovation at its finest will be going up against the Galaxy S23 Ultra with its big camera software updates and the Xiaomi 13 Ultra, the legendary camera phone with a 1-inch sensor. It's time to let the facts speak. A quick note, we use the new 24 megapixel mode on the iPhone 15 Pro. Now, instead of being locked to 12 megapixels due to pixel binning, you're able to shoot in 24 or 48 megapixels, which is absolutely amazing for Apple, who don't really like to change the way that they do things. Starting off with our favorite photos, this will be a blast. I'm loving that blur in the background on the Xiaomi 13 Ultra due to the larger sensor, but the side of my face is slightly overexposed. Combined with the nice depth of field, my choice here is the iPhone 15 Pro, drawing first blood in this competition. Next up is a general view of one of the city centers with big apartments and even bigger hotels. What I wanted to see here was the sky and how each of the phones have a different interpretation. The important point is that while the iPhone is close to the limit, as they often are when it comes down to showing clouds, none of them are exaggerating the details, with the 13 Ultra hanging around like a mirrorless camera with a light blue finish. We then move indoors and see 3 good quality photos with one big difference. The iPhone has nailed the color of my shirt. I also like my skin tone and the white balance slightly better, which is not something we're used to seeing from iPhones when the ambiance is very warm with orange and yellow lights around, so well done to Apple and their technicians. This here is a portrait shot without the use of portrait mode. Very nice blur in the back of all phones, with of course Xiaomi leading the charge in mimicking a mirrorless camera with an even shallower depth of field. I think they all look really nice and get maximum points. However, if I had to choose one, I'm personally a fan of softer photos due to hanging out with photographers who carry around big cameras that take natural looking photos, so the one on the right. Low light though is a different story. This one is an easy choice for me as the Xiaomi 13 Ultra's photo looks fantastic while the S23 Ultra's photo is lacking detail, putting it at the same point as the iPhone. The last low light photo is also looking fresh, and while I did debate this for a long time on if they're different enough to actually take points into consideration, I concluded that the differences did not affect the quality of the photos, though I'm not a fan of the Galaxy brightening up the footage to this degree. Regardless, the quality is top-notch across all phones. Well, what a close call that was, but it didn't matter now, did it? The iPhone 15 Pro takes the photo category, barely edging past the Xiaomi 13 Ultra, which was in our top 3 last year. The small improvements for Apple seem to have worked out for them, and we got a little bit more detail out of the photos thanks to the 24 megapixel mode, which barely increased the file size. Right before we move on to ultra-wide, if you're enjoying this video, like and subscribe to show us some love. A fairly general photo of the nearby university campus over here. One thing I've noticed about the ultra-wide mode of the 15 Pro is that the warmth has slightly increased. Hopefully they will tone this down just a bit. It doesn't bother us here that much as there is even more detail in the middle photo than the other two if we were to crop into the building. The colors are nice on all 3 contestants with no visible issues, so let's move on to image number 2. Here is where I start to be amazed by the HDR improvements on the iPhone 15 Pro compared to the previous models, especially since this is the ultra-wide camera. What was normally non-existent has become the best performer. Just check out the area above my right arm and how overexposed it is on the Xiaomi flagship. Well done to the iPhone once again, taking 3 points in this photo. As we move indoors, we do take a quick turn because in my opinion, Xiaomi killed this photo. Sure, they're not gonna win an ultra-wide in the end, but even though the shadows at the top are a bit too much, this photo looks like it was nicely edited as the colors and I both look really nice. However, I still have to give props to the iPhone as the focus is on point, unlike the Galaxy. The next ultra-wide indoors though, Xiaomi disappoints. Highlights are overblown as hell, while the other two are looking much better in terms of HDR, as the details outside the windows are quite visible. In low light, here is our studio. Don't let the bright lights fool you, these phones are getting better and better at turning on night mode automatically. The iPhone is slightly off in terms of white balance, so it will take a spot behind the Galaxy, but still in front of the Xiaomi 13 Ultra with better detail around my face. The last photo though will hands down go to the Galaxy, who looks to be still overall better than the iPhone in low light, but it will not be enough as the iPhone is the overall winner once again, getting just 1 point more than the Galaxy before we move on to portrait photography. The iPhone looks to be striking first again. Okay, my skin isn't that dark, but trust me, it's also not that light. Regardless, the iPhone has a more realistic representation, so they will take a step forward in this category. The next photo was a very close one between the iPhone and the Galaxy, as I have no idea what Xiaomi was thinking. We decided that most likely their software interpreted the trees behind us as lights and did some funky stuff by turning the trees into a Christmas one. Here's an indoor portrait shot. The name is Bond, James Bond. There is one thing that puts the iPhone slightly ahead here, and I'm curious if you noticed it. I talked about their LiDAR sensor technology in previous videos, which gives these kinds of sideways portraits an even more realistic look. Check out my shoulder further away from the camera and you'll see that it is blurred while the Galaxy has it completely sharp. I would love it if the S24 Ultra had a LiDAR sensor to further improve their performance in this category, but we will just have to wait and see. The second indoor portrait will see the Xiaomi 13 Ultra turn me into a ghost. No idea why they keep doing this, but bro, I'm really not that white. The other two will be tied as they're close enough, but I would probably pick the iPhone if I had to choose. As for low light, very close results here. Only thing about Xiaomi, this time I'm very yellow instead of white. The consistent issues with skin color in portrait mode does hurt their chances of winning, as we're gonna be seeing the same issue in the last photo where once again, I am just too white. I really do like how I look on the 15 Pro here though, not as compressed as the Galaxy and also with a more accurate skin tone. Well, the iPhone keeps on going strong and I can see Samsung getting mad. They're gonna be releasing an insanely good S24 Ultra to combat the iPhone 15 Pro, I can just feel it, but don't forget about the Google Pixel 8 Pro as well. That being said, we have arrived at Apple's favorite category, videos. Just look at the quality difference, I can't even say anything about this anymore. Xiaomi also does very well here though, if only they could keep the footage slightly more bright to mimic the iPhone in some ways, with the Galaxy not being able to overtake either of the two for now. Indoors, they're all looking really good, but the Xiaomi 13 Ultra and the iPhone 15 Pro are just looking a bit better than the Galaxy. While I do prefer the white balance in the middle, the quality of Xiaomi's flagship should not be underestimated as the footage looks very good. As for low light, this is pretty much about sensor size, but even more so, software. Video software. So, Apple. Always. Almost always, at least. Performing a little better than the other two once again, it takes the 3 points as Ultrawide is here. Surprise, surprise, what am I seeing? Yeah, it's a little darker, but take a look at the perfect exposure and details on my face on the Xiaomi 13 Ultra. Well done, very impressive stuff here that the other two can't replicate, giving them another 3 points. Watch out, Apple. Meanwhile, Apple's like, no, I don't need to watch out because I am overall the most consistent video phone out there. Ultrawide indoors sees Xiaomi try too hard to give us a good HDR performance, leading the main subject to be darker than needed. The other two are going to be tied here with similar traits, as low light once again will surely go to the iPhone, with the 13 Ultra taking second place. The Galaxy has a lot of noise in ultrawide at low light, so definitely something that I don't recommend trying out in the short or even the long run. You know how this ended, so if I were to switch it up really quick to keep y'all entertained, I would jump into zoom, but wait. With the new iPhone 15 Pro, you are now able to shoot in a very special format that is extremely impressive. Take a look at the video on your screen and you might be thinking, why is the iPhone footage so gray and ugly? The reason is because the iPhone 15 Pro can shoot in ProRes log format, which basically enables your video to preserve more information in the highlights and shadows so that you have more flexibility to edit your video in post-production. Here's an example of the view from our roof, focusing on a TV tower. When you take this video and then work your magic in post-production by converting and color grading, this is what happens, and it just looks amazing both in terms of detail and color. You can take something gray and colorless like the steel covered covered building here and then turn it into this beauty that you see on the screen. Turn a hotel and the sky into something that gives it life with beautiful and immense detail. The footage in the beginning that none of us liked would also turn into this, which looks very cinematic and perfect for a storytelling YouTube video. Another sight from the city would also give you the same result, as I think this is a really nice look to these edited videos thanks to our videographer. All in all, new and upcoming prospective filmmakers could definitely benefit from buying the iPhone 15 Pro and just shooting all their videos with their phone because, frankly, if you're not a professional, it seems like you really don't need to carry around a camera anymore for most situations. Now, on to zoom. First off, here are two optical zoom photos to show you the quality of these cameras and to give you a nice idea on how you can use them to compress the photo. In other terms, bring the background closer to the subject for some interesting shots. You won't be able to do this with the main lens as it has a different field of view. The iPhone 15 Pro Max actually has a 5x optical zoom lens with technology that is an improvement over the periscope telephoto lenses of Android phones, but we have the 15 Pro. Regardless, we tried out and looked at a lot of Pro Max zoom footage. It still can't compare to the massive Android camera zooms, especially the 10x optical zoom of the Galaxy. However, the Xiaomi 13 Ultra is actually putting in a better performance at 10x, even though it only has a 3.2 telephoto lens. The trees definitely look more natural and the textures look nicer when they're soft. You don't expect Chinese software to beat out the Koreans in the long run, but software updates look to have pushed this phone to be a zooming beast, taking the win in this category. In stabilization, we rarely have problems with these kinds of big brand phones while walking and shooting in 4K, as their stabilization is almost always good enough to capture steady footage if we're not waving the phone around like a crazy person. But let's just say that you are crazy and you want to run while shooting footage. Well, in that case, you won't find any better than the iPhone, with their action mode being able to shoot in 2.8K resolution. The Galaxy also has video quality close to this resolution as this feature came out with the S23 Ultra, but the 13 Ultra is a bit more stable, leaving them behind. It is also very nice to see though that the front camera is improved because of the lowered sharpness in the iPhone's photos that I mentioned. Normally the S23 Ultra easily takes this due to skin textures overall being the best on their side, but the iPhone has caught up in this regard, leaving me wondering how Samsung will come back in a few months. In low light though, it looks like as though the S23 Ultra still does a better job simply because their front camera is revolutionary. While we're at it, let's check out the front camera's recording quality as well as the audio. What is up guys? This is a very nice video because it's that time of the year again when we have a new release from a huge brand, and we are of course very enthusiastic to test out everything about this device. But first off, what you are hearing right now is the Galaxy S23 Ultra, waiting for the S24, will come out shortly soon enough. And over here we have the iPhone 15 Pro. At the same time, I'm also laughing a little because there aren't like huge changes, but still every year Apple does manage to improve their phones little by little, and we're curious to see how this year's audio quality will be like. And over here we have the Xiaomi 13 Ultra. We wanted a third phone to test alongside these two giants, and what better than the original 1-inch sensor king from China. First off, the visuals. Last place, definitely Xiaomi. Their front camera can't even shoot 4K, no idea why they make people suffer like this. One of the best cameras ever released, yet the one on the front is just mediocre. I think the iPhone's video quality is just unmatched, and this time, its audio is as well. We often went for the S23 Ultra when comparing it against the 14 Pro because their noise cancelling and the mic were just better, but the iPhone 15's Pro mic is really crisp and also cleaner than the Xiaomi 13 Ultra. Slow motion is also a no-brainer. Whenever you have a Xiaomi phone in the mix, you're bound to see something special. It can go from 240 all the way up to 1920 frames and still shoot at 1080p, so you can shoot stuff like running cats, birds, anything you would like. The Galaxy also does decent here with 960 frames at 1080p, and we are once again going back to Samsung and Apple for macro. They are just two of the kings of this category, as the vast majority of phones can't even get close to them and the quality that they produce when shooting close up. What an absolute roller coaster that was. And even though I joked about iPhones not changing too much in their phones, their camera is a different story. Really cool features and improvements here, as they were the winners of photo, ultra-wide, portrait, and video with their new gem. Zoom went to Xiaomi, stabilization back to Apple, with the front camera being a tie between them and Samsung. Audio was won by the iPhone, slow motion by Xiaomi, and lastly, macro being a tie between the big two rivals. How did you guys find the brand new iPhone 15 Pro? Do you like the improvements in the camera, and do you think that they are useful? Let us know in the comments and hit those like and subscribe buttons before you do. Much love to you all, and I will see you soon with a new comparison.